Hello and welcome back to the Homeschool Library. Brad here, bringing you a Haggard January update. Got a lot of ideas for videos on this particular topic this month, and we're already on I think it's the 13th of January. So if I'm going to get all that done, I better come back and start filling in the gaps here. We're going to let you know what I've been reading so far. Well, the first book that I read for this Haggard January adventure falls into the category of the first prompt, which is a traditional H Rider Haggard adventure story. The first one that I picked was the second book in the series that he ever wrote, which was Allan Quatermain. Chronologically, I'm sorry, not the second book he ever wrote. The second book he ever wrote in the Allan Quatermain series. Chronologically, it is the last book of the Allan Quatermain series, which brings to the end of the story the main character of Allan, as well as a character that was introduced in that book that plays a fairly prominent figure in several of the other books of the series. But he is introduced in Allan Quatermain, and his story, of course, comes to an end as well. I won't give any spoilers here for the events and everything that happens there, but read Allan Quatermain. It is a great book. Don't let the fact that that is the last book of the series deter you, because it is the second of the series that Haggard wrote. So he himself considered the story pretty significant. It absolutely is. It introduces one of the greatest characters in the Allan Quatermain mythos, and that is the character of Umslopogus. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not entirely sure. You've seen the Richard Chamberlain movies, King Solomon's Mines, and then Allan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold. They're fun movies. They're not Haggard. But James Earl Jones did do a pretty reasonable job playing the character of Umslopogus in those books. So, in those movies. So definitely go check those out just for fun, and then come back and read the actual books. Umslopogus is a fantastic character. He is of the blood of Saga, the first and arguably greatest king of the Zulu people in Southeast Africa. And one of his defining, I guess I'll say, characteristics is he carries an axe, a giant iron axe. The axe itself goes by many nicknames. It is the Groan Maker is one of the things that it's called. And is it a giant iron axe with a huge handle that very, very few men are strong enough to carry, let alone wield successfully. At some point in this axe's ancient history, it has two kind of thorns on the back end. And Umslopogus, the way that he usually fights with his axe, instead of using it as a melee weapon, swinging it around, bashing skulls and splitting bodies, they call him the woodpecker, because he takes this axe and he pecks at his enemies' heads, and the two sharp points on the back of this axe, they penetrate your skull and just pops holes in your skull, and that's how he fights with this giant axe. So at the end of the story of Allan Quatermain, Umslopogus and this axe come to the end of their story. It is more than just a weapon that Umslopogus carries. It is an extension of himself. He calls it his chieftainess, his bride. It's the second greatest love of his life. More on that in a moment. So when Umslopogus meets his end at the end of the story, it's only fitting that this axe goes with it. So the character of Umslopogus is so so pivotal and cool in the stories of Allan Quatermain. He really is one of my favorite characters. I decided to kind of follow his story throughout Haggard January. More so, actually, than just Umslopogus. I wanted to follow the story of the axe. This giant axe groan maker. So the next time that this axe appears, it is in a story called Allan and the Ice Gods, which is one of the later stories. But prior to that, I'm going to go back in time a little bit, which to the last of the Allan Quatermain stories, the last one ever written, which is called Knot of the Lily. And if you saw my previous video of my Haggard bookshelf tour, this is volume 7 in my Quatermain series from Leonauer, which is a UK publisher. These are awesome books. They're really great. Sturdy, nice binding. They've held up remarkably well over the years that I've had them. I've read many of them multiple times already. So the two books that I'm mentioning here, as luck would have it, both take place in the same volume here, the last volume. So the very last story, we've got Allan and the Ice Gods. Then there are 4 kind of novellas, just short stories. And then Knot of the Lily is the last one. Knot of the Lily is Umslopogus's prequel. Allan Quatermain himself features in it at the very beginning and at the very end, although he's never mentioned by name. You're just supposed to know that's who it is. So Allan meets and I'm going to call him Allan, even though in the book, again, he's never named. So Allan meets this ancient witch doctor, this very, very elderly witch doctor, who goes by the name Mopo, which is a very taboo name amongst especially the Zulu people. And again, I'm not going to give you too many spoilers on the book itself, but this ancient witch doctor has got a very long history going all the way back to before Shaka ever even became king. Through his story, we are introduced to the young Umslopogus as a baby who was born in the story. Umslopogus then, as he grows, he becomes kind of a thorn in the side of the family of Shaka. Shaka, his brothers Dingan and Umpanda, they call him just Panda, the kind of Anglicanized version of his name. Shaka's successors in kingship, and Umslopogus, though he is of technically royal blood, becomes an outcast. He winds up with another character named Galazi. Galazi becomes a mentor to young Umslopogus. Galazi is, how do I say this without giving too much away? Galazi is he's ingrained in the area wolf tribes. They call them the ghost wolves. He runs with the wolves. He hunts with the wolves. He can speak with the wolves, and he teaches young Umslopogus this relationship. They become kind of king of the wolf people. This is a very significant scene in the book because it was a major influence on Rudyard Kipling. Kipling, of course, who created the character of Mowgli, the jungle boy who was raised by wolves. This is apparently, according to Kipling, said this is where he got the idea for that story. Well, of course, as Umslopogus grows, eventually one of the next major episodes in this is he comes to fight another local or area chieftain who is the king of the axe people, the people of the axe is what they call him. And this unconquerable chieftain, his legendary weapon is this ancient axe. That there's no backstory on this axe. It just, apparently it has always been. It's an ancient weapon, and whoever wields it is just destined to be unconquerable. Well, Umslopogus, as you might suspect, defeats this king, and he takes the axe known as Groanmaker. So this is not only the origin story of Umslopogus, it is the origin story of how Umslopogus gets his famous axe. Well, the next story that I read, actually I read it before I got to Knot of the Lily, just because I'm kind of doing these out of order. The next one I read is Allan and the Ice Gods, which is a story treatment that was suggested to him by Rudyard Kipling. So it kind of goes back and forth. Sort of the story ideas go full circle. There is some speculation as to whether or not Rudyard Kipling helped in the plotting of the novel, even the writing itself. But certainly a large part of the idea came from a suggestion to Haggard from Rudyard Kipling. So I think that's really cool. In Allan and the Ice Gods, it is one of those stories, I think there's three of them. They make up what's called the Taduki trilogy, which is a kind of a series in a small series in the overall Allan Quatermain series, where Allan and a friend of his, a British woman who was married to an Egyptologist, they have this herb that was brought back from Africa, and it works kind of like incense. When you burn it, the smoke and the fumes rise, and it allows you to see visions of, again, the jury's out whether it's past lives or whether it just kind of awakens this some sort of ancestral memory in the modern person. So it's not actually living a past life. It's you're accessing the memories of one of your ancient ancestors. And there's like 3 different novels in the series that deal with that. They're really cool. Haggard himself never pinpointed whether it was actually a story of reincarnation or which. He didn't believe in reincarnation himself. And even in the context of the stories themselves, they speculate. The characters themselves don't really understand what's happening to them. So I think that's neat that he kind of leaves it ambiguous. Well, in Allan and the Ice Gods, they inhale the smoke from this Taduki herb and are transported back to the prehistoric Ice Age. The main character of the novel is a Stone Age hunter-gatherer by the name of Wee. Wee has a wife, children, but the chief of this tribe is very cruel, very brutal, actually kills one of Wee's children. So Wee then challenges him with the help of this stunted dwarf who had been thrown to the wolves. Again, back with the wolves. Thrown to the wolves as a baby. He'd been raised by the wolves. Kind of a recurring theme here, you might notice. This dwarf named Pag has collected a large chunk of meteorite at some point. And he's been carving, guess what? An axe from this meteorite. The idea was that Pag himself was going to use it to kill the chief and make his name great. But he decides to give this axe to Wee so that we can defeat this chief. Of course, he does. Then we becomes the very first bearer of the axe that thousands of years later would become Groan Maker in the hands of Umslopogus. I don't want to give too many spoilers. Again, I keep saying that, but I want to give you the idea of the thread that I'm traveling here through my journeys through Haggard January. So we and his axe, after they defeat this chief, we then becomes the chief, institutes new kind of more modern laws, laws dealing with monogamy. You can only have one wife. That was an issue before. Kind of starts to build a more cultured civilization out of this tribe that assumes that they are the only ones in the world. They find out that they're not when a beautiful golden-haired woman arrives near death in a boat. They find her out off the shore. They bring her in, nurse her back to health. And of course, this beautiful woman, she then drives a wedge between Wee and his wife, even though she's kind, good, virtually perfect in all her ways. And even the people who hate her can't help but admire her. They just wish she wasn't there because she's causing all these problems. Eventually, as the story ends, we and Peg are left on the shore, and this boat with the beautiful blonde woman whose name suddenly escapes me. They sail off, and then it switches back to the modern day, and everyone wakes up from the effects of this herb. So the end of the story is left very ambiguous. Nobody really knows kind of what happens there. And the last chapter of the book is Allan and his friends speculating. Like they recognize things from their own life, things that as readers of the Allan Quatermain books, you would recognize as people and figures and events that happen in this ancient prehistoric life that they were experiencing. So that is kind of rounds out the actual Haggard adventures that I'm reading kind of in that series. Next up, I'm switching to a different prompt. They're the one about works that are inspired by the works of H Rider Haggard. And I'm not going to give that away right now, but I will tell you about it in the next video, hopefully soon. So stay tuned, come back, like and subscribe. Leave me some comments. Have you read any of these books? Have you picked up on the connection and the story of this ancient axe that falls into the hands of Umslopogus the Zulu? I love how it's all kind of tied together. It's going to be tied together even more in the next video. So again, come back, stay tuned. We'll see you next time. Brad out.